going to be reviewing with you how to solve this system using the elimination method. And remember what I said in class, we need to make sure that we have the x and the y terms both on the same side of the equal sign. So if you look at the first equation, I have the y on one side of the equal sign, and I have the x term on the other side of the equal sign. So we're going to have to add or subtract to be able to get them both on the same side. Same thing with the second equation. Notice that I have the x on one side and I have the y on the other. So I'm going to go ahead and work with each one individually to make sure I get them to look like this, which is standard form. Having the x and the y both on the same side of the equal sign. So here's the first one. Negative 9 plus 5y equals negative 4x. And then I'll write the second equation over here until I get them to look like this. I have negative 11x equals negative 20 plus 9y. So here, if I want them to look like this standard form, I'm going to need to have x and y on the same side. So either I add 4x to both sides to get it to move on this side, this becomes 0. Here, I can't combine any terms because they're all different. This has an x, that has a y, that doesn't have a variable. So I'm just going to write them as 4x plus 5y minus 9. This is the same thing as that. Just put them in this order where I have the x and then the y next. Again, I'm starting to make it look like this. So in order for it to look like this, I really need to move this 9 to the other side, so I have to add 9 to both sides. So this becomes 4x plus 5y equals a positive 9. Good. Now it looks like standard form, where the x and the y are both on the same side of the equal sign, and I have my constant, or my c, which stands for the constant term, on the other side. I'm going to do the same thing with the other equation. I want it to look like this. So I need to move the 9y over to this side. If I do that, I'll have the x and the y already on the left side of the equal sign. So to do that, if I have a positive 9y, I do the opposite, or we use the subtraction property of equality. So using the subtraction property of equality, these two are not like terms. One's an x and the other one's a y. So if I rewrite it, I get negative 11x minus 9y equals, this becomes 0, so all I'm left with is a negative 20. Now it looks like this. I have the x and the y and my constant term. Once I have this, I'm going to line them up. So I'm going to rewrite them so that I have them one on top of the other. So I have 4x plus 5y equals 9, and negative 11x minus 9y equals negative 20. Now, once I have this, my goal is to have the same number, opposite signs, in front of the same variable. So you have to choose which one you want to eliminate. In this case, I'm going to choose x. I already have a positive and a negative. So I need to just multiply a number here to turn that into the least common multiple. And the least common multiple of these is going to be 44. If I turn that into a 44, I need to multiply it by a positive 4. So I'm going to multiply everything by a positive 4. If I need that to be a positive 44, I have to multiply everything by a positive 11. So let's do that. I'm going to actually bring that into every single one and multiply it. So rewriting it, I get 44x plus 55y equals 99 on the top one. Okay, just did this one. If I multiply the 4 into each one of the terms, I get negative 44x. There we go. Now we have the same number, opposite signs. 4 times negative 9 is going to be a negative 36y equals a negative 80. Notice now that we have the same number, opposite signs in front of the same variable, I can now add straight down to combine these. So doing that gives me 0. And then 55 minus 36. That gives me 15, or 19y. Equals a positive 19, which is good because that means I can divide it evenly with 19. Divide both sides by 19. Y equals 1. So now that I know my y, I'm not done. I have to go and find the other variable. So I can go to one of my original equations. I can choose this one and rewrite it, and instead of a y, I'm going to put a 1. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite that equation and put a 1 for y. And find out what x equals. 9 times 1 is 9. So I have to combine terms. This turns out to be negative 11. And if I divide both sides by negative 11, x equals a positive 1. Once I know my values, my point is going to be 1 comma, and the y over 1. So that's my x, that is my y. There we go. This is using the elimination method. This is in case you don't have it already looking like this. You don't have it looking like this, you're going to have to turn the equations. Notice how we did that. And make them look like that before we actually do this process of choosing a variable and turning that number, right, changing that number so you have the same number with opposite signs in front of the same variable.